My father, Captain Ben, came from Croatia. He worked on a big ship in 1929, the jump ship. There was a war-torn area between Austria, Yugoslavia, and Italy. So his parents told him to come to America. He had some cousins here, distant cousins. And he worked on the fishing boats. And then in the 1930s and 40s, they built a boat down called the Sturgeon. It's in the museum. My father ran it, then they sold it to my father, and then he brought it down to this location, bought a little piece of property. He fished the ocean 7 days a week by himself and caught all kinds of big 30-pound fluke and big porgies and squid, and the ocean was full of fish at that time. It was like a virgin area. He made a very nice living, worked hard 7 days a week. He really loved his work. And then when I was in the Navy, I came back. I was the only son. I bought the business with my father and I expanded it. And now Captain Ben's is known all over the Northeast for the freshest seafood, and we have Bracco's Clam and Oyster Bar now, which is our restaurant on the water here. And it's a family business. I just sold the property to my 3 sons, so now the third generation is here now with my 3 sons. And hopefully the tradition will keep going on. Freeport's on the upswing. They spent $10 million here redoing the street, and it looks great. The business is booming, and everything's very well.
So how do you think the street has changed? You've lived here all your life?
Yeah, I lived here. I was born and raised in Freeport. In 1945 I was born. It's changed. It's really become the South Shore hotspot on the South Shore. There's really no other place to go except you're out to East Hampton or the Hamptons. And it's a mile strip long. People are investing money, and restaurants are booming, doing very well here. And it's becoming more of like an 8 to 9 month area rather than just a summer area. Because it's close by. You can come from Nassau County and come down for a weekend and just grab something quick, come out for dinner, relax, walk the strip, and the shops, and there's more dining and more shopping there.
And what about the casino boats? Do you think that they've had an impact on traffic?
I think the casino boats have brought a lot of people here that weren't aware of Freeport before from other areas in the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, so on and so forth. And I think that the business will be repetitive. They'll come back with their groups in their cars and stuff to come down here to relax. They'll know about Freeport. They actually put Freeport on the map.
Where did they come from?
The gambling boat customers, yeah. They come from all over: Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, all over the area. They bust them in from everywhere. And crews and captains, they eat at our restaurant. Some of the people, before they go on the boat, they grab something to eat. But I think it's more or less getting people familiar with Freeport. It's, you have these thousands and thousands of people coming down every summer. It continues to put Freeport as the #1 spot on the South Shore.
And how about the fishing boats? Are there still a lot of active?
There's not as many fishing boats as there used to be, but there's a lot more of boats that have parties. They have engagement parties. They have dinner parties, and they have private parties on vessels and corporate parties, and the boats seem to be getting bigger, and there's more parties on the weekends. The boats are going by, the music is cranking, people are dancing on the boats. It's really festive. It's probably unique to most of the area around here.
And what do you specialize in here at the market?
On the market, we have the freshest seafood in maybe the United States, so we say. It's 7 days a week we're open. We have fish coming from all over the world here. We have fish flowing from the Mediterranean. We have fish from Montauk Point, from Gloucester, Massachusetts, and Cape May, Florida. It's just a very big market, and people have been coming here for 70 years for fresh seafood, and we continue to provide the freshest seafood in the world to our customers.
What's your most popular item?
Most popular item, there's not really one item. It's probably mostly shrimp and filet and lobsters, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But in the summertime, we sell lots of steamers and clams, the best clams in the world from Long Island. And we have every species every year, and we sell quite a bit of each amount.
What's your most exotic?
Most exotic is probably fish in the Mediterranean Sea. Barbunia, octopus in the Mediterranean, sardines from the Mediterranean Sea, from Spain, Portugal, and Greece. Those are our most exotic.
And so your sons are
Now the third generation, all college educated at Dartmouth, St. Lawrence, all college educated Ivy League kids, and they decided to take over the family business, and they expanded their restaurant, and they seem to be doing a pretty good job. I'm just overlooking, making sure everything's running smoothly, and it seems to be. They're getting it very quickly. They've got a combination of 10 years together between the 3 of them, so they're doing fine.
You're lucky that
Yeah, I never dreamt that they'd be interested in this business, but I guess they like living locally, not traveling into the city, and being their own bosses is a plus, you know. And they get along pretty well. They're all hockey players, college hockey players. They know about teamwork, and they get along very well, and they respect each other's opinions.
Do you ever have any really unusual stories in the business?
Once we were fishing off of Long Beach, my father and I, with the old sturgeon that's down in the Seaport Museum. And I was just out of the Navy. I was 21 years old, and we were dragging our nets, and we lifted our nets up, and we had this giant stingray. It was bigger than, almost as big as our boat. It was in the nets, and it was like hanging over the whole side of the deck. It was like huge, and we couldn't lift it off the deck. It was slashing its tail around, and I was kind of impressionable at that age. My father jumped on top of it, took an axe, and just kept axing it. The blood was spurting out. It was like the Fish of the Sea story. And then they had to take these big blocks and tackles and our winches to lift it up to try to get it to throw it back over. It was so huge. That was a standout moment. But we had plenty of stories. We were out fishing all the time. Big ships almost hitting us and cutting us in half in the fog. The big ocean liners, the Exxon Valdez type ships. They don't see you, and you just close calls where you're just like a few feet away from just being knocked into the water in the wintertime. Maybe never heard of again. It's kind of scary out there. It's probably one of the most dangerous jobs in the world, commercial fishing in the ocean, especially in the wintertime. And Al Grover used to come alongside of it. He used to have a little boat when he first built his boats. He used to come alongside of my father and I's boat, and he always wanted some bait. He used to be gill netting in his little Grover-built skiffs. It wasn't a Grover-built skiff at the time. It was a skiff from the Verity skiff from Baldwin. He had one, and he used to come alongside and talk to my father and I and ask for bait, small fish and stuff. We used to give him some things so he could fish out for that day.
You ever get injured while you were fishing?
My father had his leg caught in a winch one time and we lost a big chunk of his calf muscle. We were unloading at the dock and I had a hook me in the eye and I had to get like stitches in my eyeball. But nothing too traumatic. We lived through it all. Lots of sore backs, lots of hard work, tired nights, and total exhaustion. Because the ocean, the motion of the ocean just wears you out, and then you have to do all that physical labor working around that motion. It really becomes taxing.
Yeah, not a lot of people aren't cut out for it.
No, you really have to. Most people just grow up into the business and slowly get acclimated to it because it's something that you just don't get in a short period of time. And there's lots of wrecks out in the ocean out here. So when you're dragging your nets, the South Shore of Long Island has the most wrecks because in the wintertime, the sailing ships would come up close to the shoreline to protect against the winter times. And they would have these big anchors and they would leave them there and they couldn't get them back in. They would leave them and go, and there was a lot of shipwrecks, and it's a dangerous area to tow your nets around because it stops the fishing trawler, the booms break. It's hard, you can't get your nets back. It's a very difficult situation. So you have to be highly skilled to fish this area on the South Shore of Long Island.
I think I'll just get you
Okay.
If you just get whoops.
People business around here. A lot of people don't know about Freeport. They don't know about Captain Ben's. They just don't come here. They hear a lot of negatives about Freeport. Growing up in high school. Did you go into Freeport High School? Didn't you?
First came to the Nautical Mile when you first started working here?
In 1958. It was, I'd say, September 1958.
Mm-hmm. And how did you start?
Oh, we started repairing outboards, and we're still doing it today. They've gotten a little bit bigger and better, and a lot more fun to do. And from there, it's just been great.
And what's your background?
My background. Well, I tell you, I was in the United States Navy and I thought I was going to come out and work in an electrical field and got involved in boating. And from there it just took off. And now, naturally, we're running a pretty good sized shop with my whole family involved. And they're all catching on to this program real well.
And what about some of the history of the street?
Oh, the street. The street was always an attraction for people, even though with all the fishing boats and all the marinas that were here. And now, progressively down the years, the marinas have disappeared a little more. The restaurants and fish markets. But the marinas that are here, it's really an upgrade. And the street has been upgraded tremendously, that it really has a lot of people coming down as a big tourist attraction for them. And there's a lot of good things to see here. So it's progressed in the 40 years that I've been here tremendously. And fishing, we go fishing all the time, yes. We had fished down here for years. We used to catch real nice big striped bass right here in the bays, and now that they've limited the types of baits that you can use, it slowed that down quite a bit.
Why did they do that?
Well, they said that these little fish have to grow. Even though you use smaller fish to catch the big fish, they say that the smaller fish now have to grow up. So they've limited that. And by doing so, naturally, it's tougher to catch these fish. But we're still catching our share.
Now, you're talking about sports fishing.
Sport fishing.
Sport fishing.
Right, sport fishing. As far as the trawlers that are here, well, I guess they're limiting them now. I mean, we used to have a place down the street here that was called Freeport Cold Storage, and that was quite a place for the boats to come in and deliver their fish. And Baldwin, the same thing, but we're limited now for the amount of boats that are coming in and out of Freeport area. And then they put a lot of restrictions on those guys too, as far as the amount and the size of the fish that they can take. So,
How have you seen, what kind of changes have you seen on the street in the past year or two?
well, the past year, naturally, we always had trouble with the flooding of the high tides coming up into the streets, and it did slow down business quite a bit. And in the past 2 years, they've raised this street, which made it much better for people to come in and use the facilities that are here. So it's opened up a whole new thing. Really nice. Wouldn't you say? Yeah, we
What do you do when you're not here?
oh, we do a lot of good things. I mean, we have a place up in the country where we go to the mountains where we really don't see any activity too much of boating. It's mainly hunting, although we do use a small boat up there to use on the lakes that are in the area. It's only about 200 miles from here. And we go bow hunting, and we go small game hunting, as they call it, and do all of those kind of sports. Naturally, my whole family is interested in it. I have 3 sons and a daughter, but my 3 sons really are interested in the same sort of thing, and it's kept this family pretty close and tight together because we all enjoy doing a lot of the same things. Even with working together, we still can enjoy ourselves away from the business and together because we enjoy these things.
And so your whole family works?
The whole family works here. We've got my oldest son, which is Freddie. He is like more or less, say, a general manager. He can do almost anything. And then there's Andrew Jr., the middle guy, and he is like excellent on rigging new boats and a lot to do with inboard outboard stuff, which is the IOs. And then we've got Mike, who's the youngest guy, and he's into all kinds of phases. He's good talking to people, selling new product, running the fork truck, and working the parts counter as well. And then my daughter Jeanette, she does all of the bookwork and keeping the guys on their toes and telling them whether they're making money or they're not making money. So
So it's
it
really
works
a
out.
family
It's a
business.
real family business.
Tell me the name of the business.
The name of the business? The name of the business is Outboard Service of Al Grover's, and that started back in 1961. And since then, since we've taken on a motor franchise and trying to keep that somewhat separate so we know where all the little things are going, we formed another corporation and just cut it a little short and called it Outboard Service. But it does good that way for the simple reason we know what we're doing in sales, what we're doing in service, and how everything is coming together, and naturally it all goes in one pot anyhow. So that's about that. Yes. Yeah, that's the other things we used to do years ago. We used to get together, and the dealers on the canal were setting up their product to see which was the best to go around the Long Island. And then from there it became a thing where we were getting more sophisticated boats that were rigged by the factories. And Al Grover and I drove them around the island. Came in a winner on that scenario. But we came in second place with the outboards. Actually, Al had the boat the first year around with his own product, a Thompson boat, and we powered it with a Interceptor inboard engine, which really did a number on the people that they were surprised. I went in to meet him in New York City as he went through the East River at 23rd Street with gas, and they said, oh, he's long gone. So that's how great that turned out to be.
What about Guy Lombardo? Do you remember him?
Guy Lombardo was a great guy, and we did an awful lot of things with Guy as far as when he had that, when he did the shows over at Jones Beach. And we had barges rigged up over there with the scenery on it and the stages that used to go in and out of the moats, and that was all done with outboard motors. So we had a crew on call every evening in case they had a failure of running these things through the moat area there. But that was really great. Now, old Guy was right here on the Guy Lombardo on the street, across the street, but on the Woodcliff Canal. And the boatyard right next door used to do all his repairs, so we got, quite often we got to see Guy and had a lot of chats with him, which was really good also. Other than that, we're still plugging and still doing the same things, but it's been great. Really has been great.
They call it the Long Island Education Center. And then we'll walk inside, right? You want to shoot anything of the boats or the lot or anything else like that?
I'm going to do a shoot with you.
Seaport Museum in Freeport, and it's called the Long Island Marine Education Center. We'd like to go in and show you what it's about. It's located on the Nautical Mile in Freeport, and it You want to shoot any of this stuff as you come in?
Just talk as though.
Okay, these are all histories of Freeport. If you look at Freeport waterfront, in the old days, this is a canal that was dredged in the 1900s. It's a man-made canal, which we now call the Nautical Mile. And some of the old pictures show the sailing boats, the ferries that used to go to Jones Beach before there were roads to Jones Beach. The Freeport Point Shipyard, which was started in the 1920s, it built hundreds of boats here. Pictures of Jones Beach in the early days. And we try to create nautical history of Long Island, fishing, whether it's pleasure boats, or fishing boats, or Jones Beach, to create a history and use it as an education for environmental learning for the kids. All the way through, if you want to come through here, Andy, these pictures, this shows Doxsee, Bob Doxsee at Point Lookout. They have a fishing fleet. He was a former mayor of Freeport in the 1950s and 60s. And this paintings are a display of Fulton Fish Market paintings, the type of things that happens in Fulton Market. As you come in, one of the things we're very proud of is the Splash operation. Splash is a bunch of volunteers, over 200 volunteers, that go out and clean the Freeport waterfronts. They clean the canals, they clean the meadows, and they scoop tons and tons of debris. And it's not, it's not government supported. It's all done with volunteers, and the simple method of cleaning is to go by the boat and just scoop with a fish net or a crab net to scoop the debris out of the water and put it in containers. And then they do walk the meadows and pick up a lot of debris, but it's just manual labor, and they have 3 of these boats and 200 volunteers. So this is a sample of what can be done to clean up our waterways. As we walk in here further, there's a display that we made of one of the major pollutants. This is flotsam, who is made up of the typical things that we find floating in the water. And flotsam is one of our mascots for the kids to understand. Everything you throw into the street drains in Freeport runs into the bay. It doesn't go into some magic cleanup sewer plant. It runs directly in the bay. So if you drop coffee cups or change the oil on your car or anything like that, and you pour it in a street storm drain, it runs right into our waters. This is a picture of the Freeport and Baldwin area right after World War II, when we had dozens of fishing boats working out of the Freeport Baldwin area. There were smaller boats in those days, and if you see these net reels, if you can see that net reel, and each dock had a net reel on it, because all the nets had to be taken out of the boats every night and dried out. They weren't synthetic or plastic, so they would rot if they didn't dry them out. The net reel was turned by having a man get inside of it and walk and turn the net reel around. This is one of the typical early workboats of Long Island's bays before they had motors. Most everyone sailed out to their grounds if it was clamming or mussling or oystering. In the window we have Guy Lombardo's original racing boat, which was rebuilt by a friend of mine. The boat was used in the early 1940s, and Guy Lombardo won quite a few races with this boat. And it was raced right here at Long Beach. I remember seeing him in it as I was a kid. Here's the information on the boat. It was restored by Skopanich, Mario Skopanich, who put it back in the original condition. And there's a picture of Guy Lombardo at the wheel. And going into his history, this is the boat as they found it, abandoned in a boatyard. And this is a running boat which is run for special antique race boat shows. Some of the other things they don't remember about Guy Lombardo is that he also won the Gold Cup races in Chicago. He also tried to break the world speed record with was a jet-powered speedboat. And his boats were all called Tempo. Of course, being in the band business, Tempo was a very appropriate name. One of the things, when he was running this boat, he was trying for the world record, and they also had the ability to run it by remote controls. And the last run, which was going to be the fast run, they decided they'd run it by remote control. And the boat exploded. And these boats were serviced and built right here in this building. This was the Maresca boat yard. And Guy Lombardo had the Maresca family do his engines and the hull repairs, and it's very appropriate that he's got this boat in the same place that it was originally serviced. This is an Old Town canoe. The Old Town canoes and outboard boats and rowboats were sold here for over, I'd say over 75 years. They just celebrated their 100th anniversary, and we were Old Town dealers for many years. This is a boat that was built out of all wood frames and canvas covered. And to sail a canoe like this took a lot of skill because they're very narrow and very lively boats. We also had in Freeport several propeller companies. One was famous Columbian Bronze. And Columbian Bronze built propellers, as you can see here, for the submarines. And I remember them working night and day, 24 hours a day during the war. This propeller was made by Larry Johnson in Freeport. And there's a history on Freeport's propeller companies. I don't know if you have light. now, or that's something? Boats that Freeport Point Shipyard built.
Could you start over again?
Yes, this room shows the boats that Freeport Point Shipyard built since 1920 up until they closed in the 1960s. And they built hundreds of boats during World War II. Some of the boats on the wall, this was a 38-foot buoy tender, this is a Navy picket boat, this is another air-sea rescue boat, and Navy utility launches, and they built them up to 72 feet. On this photo, there's a 72-foot escort boat that they built for the government, and they received the Army and Navy E awards and built private boats up until the 1960s in Freeport. They also built rum runners, which is kind of a colorful history for Freeport, being one of the rum running headquarters, being close to New York City. And this is one of the rum running boats, which was built in Freeport, and it had 3 500 horsepower Liberty aircraft engines in it. And at the same time, they were building these boats for the police and the government, which was powered with twin 165 horsepower Invader engines. So the rum runners had 3 500 horsepower Liberty aircraft engines, and the police had 2 165 horsepower engines. So it didn't seem like there was much contest there. This is a still, which shows some real basic ways that they made their own liquor. And basically, almost everyone, when you talk to the old timers, made some kind of bathtub gin or hooch during the Prohibition era. This is a picture about the smaller skiff fishermen from Baldwin, where they had mostly 30-foot homemade type skiffs built in Baldwin, and they fished winter and summer. They fished in the summer for lobsters with lobster pots and gill nets, and in the winter they fished for codfish with set lines. And those fishermen all were phased out after World War II because of the draggers and the bigger types of fishing methods, which it made it impossible to make a living with the small skiffs. But that was a very colorful era for Freeport. This display shows the bay houses as they were out in front of Freeport, where there were hundreds of bay houses built during the 20s and 30s, and during the Depression it was easy for a man to take his family out on the bay. They would build a shack almost from driftwood and live on the bay, clamming, fishing. They were oystering mussels and skimmers, so they could live almost off the land. And after World War II, in the 50s and 60s, there was a strong effort to get rid of all the bay houses because they didn't have plumbing. As you can see, the little models here have outhouses behind them. And the idea was that they were polluting the bays, so a lot of the houses were destroyed and burnt if they were abandoned, or they didn't keep them up maintenance-wise. The town came in and destroyed them. They never owned the property. They leased the property on a year-to-year lease, so there was no guarantee that they could stay there. Now there's only a few left, but they're trying to keep them as part of our history. Sailmaking family that's still in business in Freeport after about 4 generations. They actually started at South Street in New York City making sails for schooners and square riggers. They actually made the sails for this boat. There was terrific competition in sailmaking and rigging. The boats had to be designed to make as much speed as they could, carrying cargo, and the sailmakers that had the best record of fast sails and rigging got a lot of business. There was a lot of competition between ships and sailing captains. This is a sewing machine which would be used to sew the very heavy canvas that was used for sails. And these are the sailmakers' tools, mostly all hand operated. Equipment, this was a foot operated sewing machine, no electric machine then. And a lot of history on the different sailing ships here. These skiffs on the wall are models and designs by Verity Skiffs, which was the most popular fishing skiff in the 20s and 30s. They're all obsolete now. There's no one building them in wood anymore. But they used a small cabin in the winter. They had a smokestack, which shows they had a little shipmate stove. They used a steadying sail in the winter. In the summer, the cabins were removed and the boat was used as an open skiff. The forward pulley was used to pull up lobster pots, which were shaken out on board and reset over the stern. Tired of holding that for a while? Okay, in general, this is more history of bay houses and paintings. This is a foot-operated saw where you would pedal a saw to make it operate. They did a lot of whale. It would be used for cutting small pieces of wood. It would only cut small pieces of wood because it was like a band saw today. The whalebone, which is displayed here, is evidence that there was a lot of whaling done off the beaches here. The whales were pulled up on the beaches and they were cut up and tried out before they went offshore in the big whaling ships. And as they dredge these channels around Freeport and all over Long Island, the dredge men pick up big whale bones, which they've given to us. Some of the things we try to show the children is basically the mechanical advantage of different block and tackles by having a weight on here with a block and tackle which has 3-part leverage, and then you go to a block that has 4-part and show them that it's much easier to lift the weight when you have more parts in the block and tackle. Show them how to tie different knots. There's all kinds of rope knots that we try to teach the kids. This boat is a typical Jones Beach lifeboat. By the way, this is the same as some of the early lifeboats because we made a mold of a Jones Beach surf boat when we made this boat. Of course, we trimmed it in teak. And we put in one of the original marine engines. It's a 1-cylinder make and break engine, which would run in either direction. It would run in forward or reverse, depending on how you cranked it. And these engines came out in the late 1800s. It was probably the most popular marine engine. Very simple, very dependable. And they used to break a few arms, too, trying to crank them. This is built by Freddie Skopanich of Hampton Shipyards, which is the cedar plank wooden surf boats, which they built originally for Jones Beach and for other lifeguards and surf boats and lifeboats. They were sold in those days, I was told, for $200 a piece. They're all copper riveted, oak framed, and cedar plank. Right behind it is one of the original Coast Guard surf boats. It's a 36-foot self-righting motor lifeboat. And those boats were used all during the 20s and 30s up until the 60s as one of the best rescue boats for this rough water. They could go through the inlets. They could actually turn upside down completely over and continue to run. They would right themselves, and they made some unbelievable rescues in those boats. In this area, the museum is trying to give instructions to children. They have things, different sea information like starfish and fish and mussels and clams, trying to let them understand a little bit more about the bay. This is a typical recreation of a bayman's shack, which used to be built out on the meadows. The original purpose on some of them was to be built close to the fishing grounds, because if they had to row or sail, they wanted to have their place that they could stay fairly close to the fishing grounds. This is a dugout canoe, which we found in the bay in Baldwin, was buried in the mud, and we don't have the full history on it, but it's a basic canoe made out of one log, which is completely hollowed out and used with usually rowing. But we're not sure exactly where it came from. It was found in the mud. We dug it out of the mud in Baldwin Harbor. This is one of the workboats of the Maine coast. It's called a friendship sloop. It's a type of boat that they used for lobstering and fishing in Maine coast before they had motors. Still popular as a pleasure boat. In the back, over on this other side, we have a sandbagger, a racing sandbagger. It's tough to see it. You want to leave it out?
Just talk about it.
If you want to go around the back, I don't know.
I'm gonna go back and get all the shots that I need.
Okay, you can stand on this chair if you want. It's called a sandbagger puffin, and the reason they're called sandbaggers, they carried so much sail that when they listed or leaned over towards the side when they were racing, they had to shift ballast by putting sandbags on the other side of the boat. And they were raced in New York Harbor by clubs and by syndicates that would actually invest in a sailboat and have a weekend racing situation there. This is a wooden lifeboat that I mentioned before, this 36-footer, but you can see from the waterline down she's all copper. This is all copper sheathed, so that she could break ice in the winter without tearing the hull up. The keel on this boat is all solid bronze, several thousand pounds of solid bronze, which gave her the ability to come back up if she rolled over. I think that's it for a quick walkthrough, Andy.
Out
Yeah.
that he doesn't want, and we'll give him the right to look at it, you know.
So they're just unloading. It's pretty much unloaded. So come on in. I'll introduce you to one of them. We're in Doxsee Sea Clam. Are you listening? Are you tuned in? These boats that are at the dock, they were out all night and all morning dredging sea clams. These are big clams come out of the ocean. So they put them in these cages on the boat, and then they bring them in here and process them for clam chowder and baked clams and stuff. I want to introduce you to Johnny Dempsey, one of the captains of the boat. Johnny Dempsey. You can edit anything out if they don't have a hat on. You just put this through.
No, they're all right. They were
The bomb. The bomb is
Bracco interested in doing a documentary on fishing. You know? Told him everybody in the business is crazy, right?
Crazy as they come. Like me know. Here, take a picture of that.
Did it, Clam?
Next show.
What happened over here?
Okay.
Who's been over today?
Something to say, right?
Clam's go up the conveyor belt. Go up the conveyor and they go into like a pressure.
Pressure cooker. Down in that thing. Go around and back over here. Go around and back over here. They come out of that conveyor and they go up there. They get washed, the first wash. And then they go up that conveyor over there. They go into what we call a salt grind tank. Floats the meat to the surface and skins it off. Conveyor belt, inside, one side.
Don't fall.
And then the meat goes into the brine tank. And it floats the brine, the salt brine, it floats the meat to the surface. And it gets washed out.
Separating the shells and the sand. They get washed out and the shells go up that chute over there. These are all the clean clams.
Nice lady over there.
put them in? By hand or?
Oh no, it's built automatically. It's another machinery made. It's all built, it's got a timer inside, times the meat.
So they,
You'll see it.
you understand?
I gotta do something.
Did you get enough in there? I know it's hard to hear. Couldn't hear much, so you know, if you need a voiceover, we can get Johnny to do it outside. It's out there, and they'd go out and haul and purse up the nets, and you know, fishing was so good then you'd fill up the pound nets. They'd scoop them out by hand. Once in a while, they'd get a big shark in the pound nets, or a big even tuna, you know. And the guys in the boat would take several gaffs and they'd hook into this thing and they'd fight them. They'd be pulling it. And they'd have to pull the shark aboard and kill it, you know, because it would be tearing up their nets. These were wooden seine boats that they used like this. And they took these big scoop nets to load the boats. They put some money in the cash box. Pretty good. Here's the prices. You see the clam prices? Ring buzz, use intercom, dial it, or yell like hell. It's the same boat. It's about the same. 33-foot seine. Here's the clam prices. You open up, take what you want, put the money in the box. Any of my pictures.
I'll show you a picture. There's a whole picture in here of me. I look like I'm 15 years old. No, that's it.
somebody stole it.
No, no. It's hard for me to find it.
Well, you gotta keep this crew going. What
It's
we
on
wanna
this
do,
side. It's in the wheelhouse.
Johnny, what we wanna do when you calm down, if you ever calm down, we wanna let you do a voiceover. Oh, you're still old. You're still old.
Yeah,
eh?
that's different. That's when we first got the boat. Look at that. Look at that rigging.
How old were you when you started?
Yeah.
Yeah.
22.
22?
Yeah, but he was on boats since he was like 5 years old.
Were you?
Didn't you come out of Brooklyn?
Yep.
Yeah,
East Mill,
great. Huh?
East Mill Basin.
Mill Basin.
East Mill Basin. Can't find it. I'll look later.
Oh, you want to take a shot?
Hey Al, take some pictures of the ammonia room. Compressors with all the ice in it. Put the lights on it, right? You're on. Look up.
Putting them in the containers.
talking about the quotas and Jones, you're just...
Well, that's something we got to live with, all right?
Right.
Whatever NIMS does, they're going to do. We've been to meeting after meeting about everything involved with NIMS and New York State DEC. It goes in one ear and out the other. They do what they have to do.
This is right on you.
So anyway,
Here, I'll just...
back to the old way of running a living in the bay, okay? Which is not bad. There's nothing wrong with this bay. And you can earn a living out of this bay. And that's how I got started fishing. I used to rake clams out of the Great South Bay in the very early 70s, right? And this particular winter, the ice got so thick, we were cutting through the ice with chainsaws and buck saws and iron pipes and anything we could do to get through the ice, all right? And we were working in teams on sleds, right, going out into the Great South Bay and trying to get these clams. So it got to the point where we couldn't get any clams because the ice froze all the way to the bay, froze all the way to the bottom. So I went to Bayshore. I got on the unemployment line in Bayshore. And I looked around. I said, "This isn't for me. I'm not staying in a place like this." So I came down here and I saw all the fishing boats. And I went to Montauk and saw all the fishing boats. I said, "Wow, this looks like an exciting way to earn a living." So I left a note on all the cabin doors. There were 14 boats fishing out of this canal at the time. 14. And there's a lot out of Montauk also. I left notes on all the cabin doors. Clam digger out of work, needs a job. So who calls me up? Billy Burkhardt. I don't know if you know Billy Burkhardt or not. Your father knows him, all right? He's a good friend of Charlie Wirtz's. He had a boat called the Irisham, and it was on this dock, all right? The Irisham was here. There was a boat called the Dewey, another one called the Wanderer, and Charlie Wirtz's boat, the Terry Lee, was here along with Frank and Charlie Kona, the Apache and the Rosalind Sea, and all up and down the canal there were boats. So I signed on with Billy Burkhardt for $40 a day. It's better than collecting unemployment back then. I came down here to go to work. This place was piled with snow. Right? And it was blowing real hard. Out we go. It really gets the Irisham into the inlet, and she starts whooping and diving over the waves, and everything froze up. Couldn't see nothing. Billy goes outside, goes like that in the window. No radar, pitch black. Oh, there's the buoy. Out we go, right? So we get in the ocean, and it's blowing pretty good northwest, and it's cold. I said, well, what do you say we have some coffee, okay? So I put on a pot of coffee, and we're headed down towards Ambrose to catch whiting. And by the time we got down, it was just cracking daylight, and I looked around. There was boats all over the place. A huge fleet from New Jersey, another big fleet out of Brooklyn, and just a whole lot of boats. So Billy did everything by himself. He set the net, and he started towing, what we call the horseshoe tower, right? And when he hauled the gear back, I had no idea what fishing was all about. Here comes the net. I see a fish stuck here, another one stuck over there. I said, how are we going to make any money like this, all right? A couple of fish. Then here comes the bag. God, it was full. So I said, wow. All right, I had other language, right? I'm being clean. Look at that, okay? Dumped it on the deck and made another tow and went home. 11,000 pounds of whiting, okay? And 2 tows. We came back to the dock here. I guess we got back about 11:30, 12 in the morning. And he said, come on, we're going up to Edna's and have a couple of drinks. I said, why? He said, well, we have to wait. The white boats come first. That's Charlie and Frank with the Rosalind and Apache, right? They unload first. They'll call us when it's time for us to unload. So about 4:30 in the afternoon, we get the phone call, come on down, unload the boat. And I'm telling you, I thought clam digging was hard. When I got home that night, I crawled up the front stoop, had something to eat. I had to be back here at 2 in the morning, all right? That was my debut into this fishing business. I loved it. I've been doing it ever since.
How many years?
Oh, Christ. The very early 70s. And then I went through a whole rash of stuff out in Montauk and whatnot, fishing with other people. I came back to Freeport. It was Billy Botch, the captain for the Sundance, who was brand new at the time. So I ran the Sundance 5 years for Billy. And we had a love-hate relationship. I don't know if you know Billy or not. I think I got fired 7 times. I might have quit 15. But he had a card that said peace, and I had a card that said peace. And every time we got mad at each other, he held our cards up. And we managed to get along for all those years.
This is Billy Botch, who I just
Right.
met.
Right.
And so
Damn good man.
when you started fishing in the 70s, who were some of the old timers who were around?
Well, there was, oh yeah. There was Frank and Charlie Kona, all right? Charlie's dead. He had the Riseland Sea. And there was Frank, who just retired about 5 years ago, okay? And also Charlie Wirtz, who's still around. Timmy Swanson was around from the St. Peter. And Joey Ippoliti, he had a boat called the Trade Winds that was up at his own dock, all right? We called it Muller's at the time, all right? When they had the Spanish food. And Georgie Lightfoot had the Daily Bread. Mike Wallen was around. He had the Carajan. And the fellow who owned the Wanderer, I think his name was Dennis. That was at this dock. Most of the boats were here, okay? There was some at cold storage. The only other boat around south of there was Benny Bracco's boat, the Sturgeon, which is up in your, it's up your place.
Yeah.
Billy sold the Irish M to, I forget the fellow's name, but he was selling fish up where St. Peter is. His name was Jack. And he kept the name Irish M. And up again further, boats start getting bigger, all right? Bracco and somebody else bought one of the first big boats in the port. But nothing ever materialized. Oh, Bruce Lawson was here with the Bozo, all right? And
What were those guys like back then?
everybody was young and crazy.
Were they adventurers?
You got to be adventurous to be in this business.
Well, the thing that...
Your father was a young man then.
Yeah, well that... The 70s, yeah? He was
Yeah.
still young.
Yeah, he was.
I was born in the 70s.
Oh, so it makes you very young.
But the thing that's interesting to me is it seems like it's not only is the craft passed on from generation to generation, but it also the passion for adventure and for the sea. A lot of these guys say that they love it and hate it.
Well, you love it and hate it for 2 reasons, all right? One, we've been so restricted. That's why you hate it. But the thrill of the chase, you still love, all right? Nothing like the thrill of the chase. I don't care what they pay me for the fish. I just don't give a damn, all right? I love catching them. But I'll tell you, if that thing wasn't paid for, I couldn't afford to own it. Not the way things are now.
Why is it the ET?
Eleanor and Tony,
Who's that?
myself and my wife,
Oh, okay.
all right? It costs too much to pay an ET, Eleanor and Tony, on the front of the boat. So we shorten
You
it down,
just
ET.
bought the
It's a lot
letter.
cheaper.
And
So anyway.
Why are you Tony Baloney?
Huh?
Tony Baloney?
Oh, got to ask some of the other fellows about that. There are other fellows on the canal that have names. There's Charlie Flapjaws down the end of the canal. Okay? And there's even worse names than that, which I wouldn't say to a woman. The fellas that were around here, all right, like Jack Dabb, a little Dabb will do you, all right? But he had worse names than that. I don't think I'm allowed to use bad language on this. But,
So-
you know, there's names all up and down. But I like Charlie Flapjaws.
And the names of the boats, they all have people's names, or a lot of them do.
Most of the boats that were here
Have women's.
were not new. The only new boat that was here that I know of, 2 of them. One was the Rosalind, 3 rather, all right? The Rosalind was bought new. The Apache was bought new. And so was Dick Abbott's boat, the Gannet. And most of the young fellows around here that went fishing learned how to fish from Dick Abbott. He's some kind of a god around here as far as we're concerned, all right? But he went by the wayside. John Barleycorn got him.
What's that?
Research that.
John Barleycorn?
John Barleycorn got him. And he got him good. It's one of Jack London's stories.
Oh.
All right. Anyway, what else do you want to know?
I want to know about some of the adventures that you had.
I don't want to get involved in that. Go watch The Perfect Storm.
Oh. Okay, well, tell me some of, the best times that you've had.
Oh, best times? In the wintertime, whiting fishing. With Frank on the Apache, all right, and also when I got this boat. All the fish, all right, and the packing out, and it was just endless fish. It was a lot of work. I called it a Freeport bodybuilding contest, right? Who could get more weighing in orbit than the next guy. Oh, John Orkney was around in those days, too. Snuffy, I don't know if you know the name Snuffy, but he works for Doxsee in Point Lookout. He had a boat called the Kellyanne. He was one of the originals. And Kellyanne, I think it sunk over there at Bracco's. And he never went fishing again after that. He got into the Clam business. And he's been with Doxsee a long, long time. But as far as adventures are concerned, I kind of keep them to myself.
Okay, great. Anything else that you think is important that people should know about
Important?
the industry and about
Yes.
the individuals?
Yes, a whole lot. The most important thing about going fishing and being on your own is self-discipline. And for anybody that strikes out on their own, self-discipline is the hardest part of it. I don't care whether you fish, or whether you sell pencils, or whether you do a dry cleaning store. Nobody tells you when to get up in the morning. Nobody tells you what you have to do during the day. And a lot of people are frustrated on a regular 9-to-5 job or a 40-hour-a-week job, and they get mad because the boss says do this and the boss says do that. I'm going to do something on my own. But they find out that the most hardest thing you can do is to go in business on your own and be disciplined to do it. All right, and that coupled with marketing, anybody who wants to get into the business, I say learn how to sell what you have. Okay, go to school, get an education in marketing, and then if you want to go fishing, all right, I'll teach you. But the first thing is to learn how to sell what you have, because it's a cutthroat business, right? And you have to sell yourself and your boat and your product better than the next guy does in order to be successful.
Do you have any kids?
7.
7 kids? And
Children, they're not kids.
Children. Did they ever fish?
My son Joey fished with me for quite a while. Then he met a woman, he got married, he went down to Florida because he couldn't take the cold. And he has his own shrimp boat down there now.
Did you tell him to go to school too?
I tell everybody to go to school. Learn marketing, learn how to sell what you have. It's very important. There's a lot of people out there, and the worst thing I can't stand, all right, the very words and say, I can get rid of. All right? To me, when they say I can get rid of, right, that means he's not going to do his best to sell my product. Say I can sell what you have is much better than saying I can get rid of. Somebody says I can get rid of, I won't give them a scale. And it took me a long time. I did go to school, but not for marketing or fishing or business or anything like that. I have a degree in mechanical engineering. And that had nothing to do with fishing. And that's
So
another story in itself.
Doesn't come in handy?
It does fixing this boat. And I've done great inroads on this boat. I've been working on this boat for 15 years. Okay? And it's still not to the point where I want it. See that mast? I built that mast. Boat itself, there's 38 new ribs on each side that I put in, steam bent, okay, using the hull as a template. There's a lot of heavy woodwork gone into that boat. And it's not finished yet, okay? I don't know if it's ever going to be finished, because I'm getting kind of old to do it.
Who's going to finish it if you don't?
I have no idea. But there are people up north that want it. They want it back where it was born. The Maritime Museum at Stonington wants the boat, because he's only one of a series of 6. He's one of the only one left. And the reason it's alive because of me and the previous owner, Luther K. Hoon, all right? Now, Luke runs around that boat. Luke is dead, all right? And there's a ghost in there, all right? And he did good work on the boat when I first saw the boat, all right? Every time I do something to it, I say, hey, Lukey, how do you think, all right? Is this better than what you could have done?
What's he say?
Huh? Yeah, sometimes he shakes his head and other times he says, that's okay.
Do you really believe there's a ghost on there?
On that boat there is, yeah.
A good ghost.
His name is Luther K. Hoon. The man, Luke, I'm a little guy next to him. He was 6'7" and weighed 300 pounds. He was a huge man. Well liked, a good fisherman. This boat was in an accident. It wasn't always rigged like this. It was what they called a pennant rig, okay? Which means that she carried her trawl doors off the stay wires instead of a gallows frame like that. And the whole thing was hooked up to the bow stem over here. So they hooked up on something, probably in Long Island Sound. And they ripped the stem out of it, pulled the mast down, and it was a terrible, terrible accident. So Lukey rebuilt the boat. Did a beautiful job, put a new stem in it. Did a lot of work downstairs. And when he got finished, he was 57 years old. He went golfing with his buddies, got a heart attack and died. So the family hired captains to run it, and all they did was run the boat into the ground and not make any money for them. So they put the boat for sale. And I spotted it. I said, wow, it's just what I want. And I still have it.
Thank you so much, Sonny.
Okay.
Bass bait, and the large ones I take and I smoke. Now, some I skin out and sell at the restaurants and people can eat that, and it's all sold in the local area. So I like what I do. I like my neighborhood, but it's getting a little crazy now because they upgraded it and there's a zillion people around. So it went from being Woodcliffe Avenue to the Nautical a mile, I guess. Everything's changed. This is my little piece of land here. Mike Dannon is nice enough, which I know him since I'm about 2 years old also. 10 years old, I'm lying. And he worked on the Lou, and I know him, so he's nice enough to let me keep this float here. He says, because the people need something to see. Actually, so when people pull up, I slide up with my Garvey there. As you can see that, it's flat bottom, boat leaks like a sieve. And I slide up in that, and then I tell them what I caught for the day. So I'll jump down on my piece of land here, and I'll whip up a few snakes for you.
Okay.
If you're gonna come down, you can come down just nice and easy. It's solid, but I'm sure you've been around the water a while. There you go. Okay. Now these guys here, we're just starting to catch. And this is the North American eel. I trap these right behind people's heads. Now we got some pretty good sized ones to go in the smoker. And we got Junior here, nice anaconda. Come on, you're gonna be on TV, baby. I'll put on my gloves, baby. Slippy little devil's ankle. There you go. This is an average size of a good size eel. She's about 2.5 pounds. I'll take that eel and I'll be smoked. I also take the bigger ones in this and I skin them up and people eat them fried. The small ones, which are the little tiny ones, will be used for bass bait. So we sell basically anything that we catch. This is just coming into our area right now. You can go back with the girls. You got that pretty good?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Jenny, you could get it like pulls it out again.
They all got plenty of eels in them, and I gotta pick. The hard thing is to pick the little ones out of the back. Talk about a leaky boat that's been in the water for about 3 hours. She's so full up. I'm sliding into the Millennium now, though. I just caught a fiberglass hull, which is in the back of my yard. You saw on the other tape of the Bayman had that things with the smokehouse? Because I have them in my backyard, and that's where these are going to go. There you go. How's that? Hey, look at that wham bat. See? That's got to be a 3-pounder. Boy, you ain't never getting a hold of that. They take these big eels like this. Wow, there you go. They take them big eels, they'll skin them. They use the skins and make wallets. Wallets and belts out of the skin of these eels. But I take them and smoke them up. And that's what I've been known for in this area. The other guys that these are eating are these right over here. Turn this one on. Hey, a small boot claw. Ow! lots of them around this year. We've been catching plenty of boot claws in the bay, and there's plenty of these little peanuts around, and they get going into the killies. Anyhow, these are killies, or minnows, and we catch these right here in the marsh, and then I sell these to the party boats or bait stations where they catch the fluke, or summer flounder, which is known down south. And that season will go till October 2nd. I'll fish these killies about another week, put those traps away. Eel season's coming in nice this year, September till about, a little after Thanksgiving. Eels are all over, and then I will go green crabbing. And in the meantime, I also work on this boat here, the sturgeon too, and we catch the skimmer clams. You can get that boat. You should go over there and I'll show you what the dredge is. I'll be glad to tell you. That's up to yourself. I'll explain how it works. So I do that with the kids. I teach 4th grade and I take them up and down the block. I teach them all about working in the bay, and then.
Leave it open for a second?
Can I what?
Leave it open for a second. I
Sure.
can't get the sound.
Nice. These couple of nice Weyant. That's what you look for. This year was very bad with the killies, and we didn't actually start catching these until late July this year. Very small, very teeny little killies, and now we're just starting to get them, but it's almost the end of the season, so it's a little late. But that's how it goes. Put these guys back in the water. Okay, we'll throw the meals back in the water.
Those are some good sounds.
There you go. All right?
You get a close-up of the eel.
Well, maybe I can get a grip on one, but I doubt it.
Oh, just them.
Should just get them in the.
There's some big wambats in there, I'll tell you. You get them now and then, you go, how'd that get in the trap?
What's a wombat?
Oh, I call a wambat. It's a really large one, like this one, a big silver. Oh, he's so big. He's an old dog. He's been around a long time. I mean, there's good sized ones. Then you get that's nice green eel. Oh, these are lively. We have to take this before I smoked it, and these will be put into a garden lime, which takes the slime off of them. Then they are rinsed off. Then they're gutted, washed out, and then put into a brine, which is of dark brown sugar and salt, 10 gallons of water. Then it is soaked, then it is hung up, and then that is then smoked in my smokehouse. That's what I do with them. So.
Sounds good.
Yeah, well, long time, and people love eating them up, and I have no problem getting rid of it, that's for sure. Got 100 pound. I'm like, well, there you go, bub. And I had it stuffed. But now that I started, ain't no sense of taking the traps out now. Being that
I don't know where I've been.
What are you doing? Can I get a portrait?
set?
Come down and have my beer every night. Not every night, occasionally on weekends. See friends. Who are you taking the pictures for? Documentary, you're right. I've been coming to Otto's and Earhart's for years. I don't know if that's good or bad. Just coming down to have a beer on a Friday or Saturday night as usual. And I've been coming down to Otto's and Earhart's for years. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I'm still going.
How many years?
Oh, geez, I don't know, 20, I guess.
You ever go out on a fishing boat?
Not recently, no. I keep saying I want to, but I don't.
Do you live in Freeport?
No, I live in Valley Stream
Valley Stream.
all my life. You know, why you gotta keep asking questions?
You ever eat at any of the restaurants?
Yes, I do. Mix them up, you know, here and there. I don't want to mention which ones because I might get in trouble. Okay, thank you.
Can you just stand there for a second and just pose? We can just get a shot of you just standing there just for a second.
Like I'm looking at something? And where is this documentary going to show up? Oh, okay. Probably by Otto's. Everything ends up there. Okay.
What are we on?
We're all here, right over here at
What
the
are we
poop
doing?
deck. The world
What are we on?
famous poop deck dock
Poop
at the
deck.
Woodcliff Canal.
Drinking heavily.
That's right.
What's
Most
going
of-
on?
That's all we do.
What is this all about?
At the
What are you
poop.
doing?
We're making a documentary about the Nautical Mile.
Yes. We all
We are the Nautical Mile.
Mile. Right
We're
here,
here
the Captain Luke,
365 days a year.
the Captain Luke fleet is
We
the
are
Nautical
the
Mile.
Nautical Mile.
We are the Nautical Mile. We are the beginning of the Nautical Mile.
What do you
From
do with
beginning
the
to end. What? We fish. We're fishermen.
I do.
Mostly we fish, and at night, you guys do party cruises right there. That's
We're off the Captain Luke.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
What's
This
your
is
name
Al
again?
Grover's daughter.
What's your name?
Andrea.
Andrea. Who's the best looking guy on video right now? That's all I want to know. Andrea, what's yours?
You'll win. This is Al Grover's daughter. Al's in a van watching you right now. Behave. pull your nipple.
Maybe we shouldn't be on video. Yeah, maybe I would have just.
Yeah. Otherwise, Mike Dad is be like, what the hell's the matter with you guys? Bull.
But let me tell you one thing, and if anybody over here at the Captain Lou Fleet, we have the best looking mates and the most groomed and clean mates. Every mate on the canal has to wear any mate on the Captain Lou Fleet has to wear a Captain Lou shirt. Captain Lou, Captain Lou, Captain Lou.
Well, they're off duty, so they don't have shirts.
We have a great dental plan.
Everybody, yes, dental plan.
Hygiene is,
It's most important. You have to be clean shaven every day, have a nice haircut, and you have to wear a Captain Lou shirt. And just because of the fact that we are here at the first lot at the corner, we get majority of the customers, and it has nothing to do with...
We represent the customers.
Yes.
Represent the business.
Most definitely,
represent.
yes. It's the Captain Lou Fleet.
We're representing.
First class operation on the Captain Lou Fleet. Excuse me too, because I can't be the only one talking right now.
You got my brother Selma.
One more shot. I got some money for you, girl.
I should be so lucky. I should be so lucky.
We're on camera. Look, we're on camera.
Give me that camera. I can film some stuff. Not me.
The teeth are the best.
Captain Keith. That's Captain Keith. You seen him? He's a quick glimpse of him. He's a captain. He's 23 years old. I am 30. I've been working down here since 1984. I've been on this canal for 16 years. He's 23. He is the most eligible captain around. Not only is he the most eligible captain, but he is also the most eligible vessel. Actually not, but he's willing.
And I'm their dentist. And I'm their dentist.
I don't need this.
Nice hat.
He's the dentist. You gotta get him on.
If anybody's asking, look right here. This right here. That right there is my sweet tooth. If the wind blows too hard, I get a chill down my spine and I feel it right over here.
What channel is this gonna be on?
It's not gonna be on any channel. This
Why?
is her documentary on the Nautical Mile.
A movie theater.
Oh, the Nautical Mile. Then you guys should come in then. If you want to see what the Nautical Mile is all about, I think you better come inside.
Toddy,
Yeah.
please.
All right, don't come inside.
Please. No.
Actually, this is the place you should come inside.
This is already PG.
But you know what? The most clean-cut captain on the block is right there in the road.
That's right. He is.
He's a hoe. I mean, a pro. A pro.
Right over
he's
here.
He's not a hoe. He's a pro.
Look,
hoe pro.
He's the tallest, darkest, most handsomest man on the canal.
And he even cuts his pubic hairs like his head. He combs them all back up towards his belly button.
And he's single.
Dino's girl. Oh, Dino's girl.
What are you doing? I hate cameras.
Welcome here from Texas. We're so happy to see you.
When are you going back to Texas?
Monday.
All my exes live in Texas.
Is that right?
Yeah. Actually, Tennessee, Mississippi, wherever else I was in the Navy.
What do you
Whatever.
know about the
What do I know about the poop deck?
How long's it been around?
Oh,
Forever.
forever. There used to be a lot of big stars used to hang out here.
Edna's got all the stuff on the wall in it. Go in there and look, read the wall.
You should really go look on the wall. Really, a lot of people.
See, we chew tobacco in New York too, guys. Just so you know. You know,
A lot of people used to come here.
it's not only in Texas.
You had, what was the name of that band that used to...
I don't know. Yul Brenner's been here. A lot of movie stars have been here.
What about the band that used to play New Year's Eve?
Guy Lombardo.
Guy Lombardo.
Guy Lombardo, Yul Brenner. A lot of movie stars. They got a whole list in there.
All right, Smitty's wife is here. Smitty.
Yeah, well, we got caught again.
And she's holding hands. These are two lesbians, and he's the third.
No. He's my raft man.
We're having a nice conversation.
He's a
here,
raft
Todd.
man. He's a raft man. We were at Otto's the other day. You could shoot over there.
Oh, come on, don't make
we were
no
rafting.
spot it.
We were
We're having
rafting.
a nice
No,
day.
come
Be
sit.
nice.
Oh, there's
We're
a
gonna get in
raft.
trouble.
Now,
We're gonna get in
what
trouble.
is this documentary
Got
for
Freeport's
what?
finest here doing U-turns
Seriously,
on
you
us.
should go inside
Oh,
and you should look at the
and where's
pictures
it gonna
on
be
the wall.
broadcast?
And right over here, this is
Here's
Mrs.
Mama Lou.
Dannon.
This is Mama Lou.
This is Mrs. Dannon.
Sure.
Yes, you are.
Where's this going to go?
Where's not far? It's not going far. Don't worry.
This is Mrs. Dannon.
They're not taping it.
Her son owns the Nautical.
This is the big marker, yeah.
Don't believe it. Don't believe it.
In Jewish, we say this is the biggest marker on the aisle, right? Big marker. It's the big marker Tatum.
Bill Farrell's honey, if the truth be known.
I thought you were my girl. Come on. You
Bill
cheating on me?
Farrell's honey. Bill Farrell has your picture in plastic.
Oh, no.
In his pocket.
No, all the captains have a picture in the boat.
You know Bill. You know him if you see him. He's
All
a
right, we have to
regular
leave
for-
now. We're going
he's
back
been a
to
regular
drink.
for like 20 years, Lisa.
He actually came up to me. He showed me Lisa's picture in plastic. He says, I gave Lisa a 5-pound
I want
fish.
one of those cameras. I love that camera. That thing's tricky. Hello, hello.
Hello. Hello. Come on, guys. I think all.
You get a free trip on me, all right?
All right. Thanks a lot.
Definitely. You can show the bay and everything else. It'll be nice. Bring your camera. I want one of. How much one of those things cost?
That one was like 2,000.
2,000?
The fishing business. We were videotaping on the Nautical Mile yesterday, but we didn't get a lot of people actually working. So can we talk to you guys or follow you around maybe? Well, tell me, where should we go, Jane? It's fine. Okay. Well, we'll start with you since you're closer to the camera.
There you go. Artie.
Artie. And how old are you?
19.
19. When did you start working on the boat?
2 years ago.
And what's the name of the boat?
Stephanie Nicole.
What do you go out for?
Surf clams.
And how did you get involved in the business?
My best friend over there, his dad owns the boat. So I used to go out when we were little and just kept going. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like 4 or 5 times a week.
When do you go out and how many times a week?
We go out at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and we go out till like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Today's an early day though. Go out like 5 times a week.
In all seasons?
Yep, all year round.
Oh, sorry. And you did a good job?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Make good money.
Are you one of the youngest guys?
Yeah, I am the youngest guy here. My friend's 20 and that's it.
You started when you were 17.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a big difference between the type of work that you're doing now and what fishermen did?
It's a lot easier now because of machinery and stuff. It's a lot less physical labor, but besides that, it's the same stuff.
And how are the supplies?
There's tons out there.
All right. Well, thanks.
No problem.
Keep going, though.
Yeah.
All right.
That's at 19. That's 25. Bill, how many did your dad have? 5. 38. Just 3 of us.
How old is this boat?
30 years old, I think. Yeah.
I can't think of any questions. Is there any, do you have any interesting stories about going out fishing? I mean, going out.
Not really.
No?
No.
The youngins are all shy.
Hey.
Hey. Yeah, we, okay, that's great.
Okay.
So how do you think the fishing industry has changed in the past 50 years, say?
It's not as big as it once was, but everything seems to be alright now. Yeah, back to normal.
And do you think the work is the same?
No, much different now. We use everything's machinery now. Yeah, it's not no real physical labor.
Oh, it looks pretty physical.
Well, not a bit. It used to be. Yeah.
And so what kind of demand is there?
It's pretty high. It's good. Yeah. Recently, only for the past couple months, but for a while there, everything was real slow for like 5 years. But things are good now. Jeff, you can talk to her if you want, but she don't like.
I don't talk at all.
She's antisocial.
Yeah, I'm antisocial. I don't even like myself, so that's a question.
People know a lot about, and it's kind of an industry that maybe hasn't changed all that radically. And I think I've moved away for about 10 years, and now coming back, I fully appreciate the kind of.
So you live here?
No, I live in Texas now.
Live in Texas?
Yeah.
Well, where's that? Yeah, right.
So, Elwood's fought motors, and they always paid me on time, you know.
Is that what you're talking about? You have a brother named Freddie and
They used to buy motors, and they'd give you so much a month, and they always were good at it. One day, their father came in, and
His name was William.
they call him Elwood, though, right?
No,
Oh,
Uncle
Bill.
Richie.
Bill.
You know, but my grandpa was William.
Maybe they call him Kite.
Bill, is there a fillet knife on the boat?
They might have called him.
Wait till my dad gets back on that. I can't find it. You're gonna be for a week. Just get somebody to
My
dag
father
you.
was an eelman. Used to catch eels.
Yeah, he went.
No, but they want to like take pictures of stuff of what they do, so you know.
What was your father's
You get to watch me and like in the crane.
And then I have an Uncle Jackie who's actually Fred.
Most of the guys from Baldwin moved out to nice looking bay shore.
Yeah, that's where my dad came from. He lived in Baldwin. Yeah, and he moved out by us. Oh, obviously.
I think all the fishermen come from Baldwin.
They do. I don't know why. Most of them, Baldwin and Freeport, Oceanside.
Are you the only woman out here?
Well, mostly, yeah.
Joy.
We have to talk.
Actually, you're part of the fishing, the eeling, and just talk.
I open clams. That's all I do.
Well, then you have to talk.
All I do.
Me and Andrea had to talk, and we don't like people.
But that's all I do.
Yeah, Bill's the most antisocial person there is alive. Right, I'm trying to find a crane. It had windows that lock it. And I told him, they told him that they had a camera and he ran away.
Well, I don't know. You have to ask questions.
How long have you been opening clams for? And how did you get into it?
Actually,
She gets dragged, she
through,
needs money.
through a friend of theirs actually, and came down one day and just started opening. And I've been doing it for about a year and a half.
Yeah, probably.
Year and a half, stuff that. Yeah, not too long.
And
It's
what-
dirty work.
It's dirty work.
Yeah.
How many do you think you're opening? And
Well, it depends. It depends on how many needs to be opened. I mean, if I can open 30 or 40 in a day, I would do that. But most of the time, I usually get anywhere between 20 to 30. Well, it depends on their orders and stuff. So.
20 to 30
Bushels.
bushes. Not the clams.
No.
And how are your hands?
They're okay. I'll have arthritis in the future, but you know, that's life. People work on computers, they get the arthritis too, so. You guys have somewhere. No, they're filthy.
No, just
No, but I have nails for dirt to get under.
No, so what?
Yeah. Well, they're still femininely soft.
They
so
look
far.
soft. They do. You must take good care of them.
Not really, but.
Jesse, when you
I
like
wash
dip,
every day.
That's when you gotta start worrying.
That's about it. Take a shower every day.
Yeah, but you also wear gloves.
Yeah, I always wear gloves. Got it.
How old are you?
26.
Yeah, she's the old one on the boat.
No far.
So you are.
And
I remember that.
do you live in Freeport?
No, actually I live in Bayshore.
So you commute
Yeah.
a little bit.
I live like right around near them, close to them. So.
How many hours do you work on the boat?
It depends how many needs to be opened. I can work from anywhere to 3 to 4 hours, sometimes 5, 6. It all depends on how much orders they have.
In the winter also?
Actually, yeah, we usually work up till December sometimes. It all depends on.
There's no way you.
What?
That way we work in winter.
Oh, well, yeah, you guys do. I mean,
Unfortunately.
I only open like usually up to December, and then from then on they usually get food, big lunch, food. So, well, they cost when they need openers, basically. It's good money.
Why do you think there aren't any other women working out?
Because it's dirty. We don't like to get dirty. I don't know. And it's all you gotta have a knack for it too. And I mean, I grew up on the water, so it's not as. When you grow up on the water doing things and getting dirty, it's not so bad. I mean, I think it all depends on what kind of family you grow up in. You know? When you grow up in the business, sometimes that's what you do.
Yeah. And you're a Verity?
Yeah.
What's your full name?
Jessica Verity.
My dad is always.
That's nothing special.
It is, Jeffy.
No, it's not. I'd rather be a Trump. Is that possible?
Your dad's just a troublemaker, that's why so many people know you.
Actually, I think it was more or less my Uncle Jack.
Yeah, a little everybody.
Yeah.
So are you done for the day now?
Yeah. Basically. Wanted to change. Try to tidy up for the ride home.
That would be funny if she really see it.
Oh, boy.
So you guys in college doing this? No? You're just doing it just to do it?
So you guys aim for Texas and you like just
Exactly. Just to do this.
what do you guys do just for a living?
Well, Jenny teaches film and video, and I run a little movie theater, and we show independent
Films and
budget
stuff.
films and stuff. And this would
This would be a low budget film?
Yeah, this would be very low budget. This would be no budget. But yeah, I guess Jenny, maybe we could.
Florida, and she's actually running a deli now, I think. But
And so that was your aunt,
yeah, that was my Aunt Lillian.
and she was
She
married
was married to Elwood.
to Elwood, and
Yeah.
their last name was
Verity.
Verity also.
Yeah.
And what kind of boat did she have, and what kind of fishing did she do, and how long did she do it for?
Well, I think they did eeling. See, I'm not all sure what, I know they all did eeling, and they did spearing, I don't know what else, killies. We used to bag up little killies. They used to pay us, all the little kids to bag up little killies, and we used to put them in a big freezer in the garage and stuff, and sell them as bait and stuff. And they used to sell them by the quarts and stuff. They also, by the quart, killies by the quart. I don't know what a quart is. It was just those buckets or something. But
How old were you when you were doing that?
oh, I don't know. I guess anywhere from 10 to 15. 10 to 15, in between there. And what else did they do? My Uncle Jimmy, he was also on the water, and he eels. That's all he really did. In the middle, and you actually catch winkles. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know how they stay in there, but they actually go in there and they stay in there. And but besides ealing, that's all my dad really did. Was winkling. What else they call them? The conch shells, I think. See, I'm not sure what everything's called, the names of everything. So. I'm not exactly the best person on info, but and my Uncle Jackie, he used to eel. Now he's doing crabbing, because nowadays you go where the money is. But he's doing pretty good with the crabbing, so everybody's doing crabbing now. And he used to clam. My cousin Billy actually works on the water too, and he's Jackie's son. So he's on the water. And actually, they used to live in Brentwood. They moved to Amityville, and now they're on the water. So, because both my father and my Uncle Jackie were the ones who didn't actually have houses on the water. So they actually, because my Uncle Elwood and my Uncle Jimmy had houses on the water. So basically, my father and Uncle Jackie would have their boats at at their houses. So. You'd have to commute all the way because it was where it was in Lindenhurst, is where both, because they actually lived on the same street, like a couple houses down from one another, my Uncle Jimmy and my Uncle Elwood. So actually that's where, and we used to build these huge big pens, horseshoe crabs, to hold horseshoe crabs, because that's actually what they use as bait in the eel pots. And big huge pens, like a little hole in the middle, and they used to have netting around the sides and stuff. We used to fish off it, swim off of it, hop off of it,
Yeah.
And we used to park the boats in between it and stuff, tie cars onto it. And any other questions you want to ask?
If I think of any, are you gonna be around?
Well, I'm gonna change, so I should, if you wanna think or look around or do something, I should probably just change real quick, and if you think of any questions. Okay.
All right, thanks.
That'll I know. I don't know much.
Yes.
I'm standing on a platform there. That's where I started at.
What year was that?
I think it was in the 50s sometime, 50s. I don't know exactly. I have to. That's my first. That's my wife. Out of the bottom of the ocean, that plane, right there, that 4F. That's why I got hanging up there, Took her out of there and they put her all back together.
Oh yeah?
And that's on the lake, I think. You can see all the pictures we were. This was, I don't know.
And it looks like he ran a butcher shop?
Hmm?
Is that a butcher shop?
Yeah, it's a butcher shop, yeah. We were all born in this country. My grandfather was. He was born in Germany. That's right on that side. See that guy there? It's my grandfather.
Yeah.
You didn't put the
Yeah, and Johnny Doxsee.
Tell me about some of the other
I'm sure you got
photographs.
plenty of information from Bob.
Yeah, and Johnny.
That's me on one of the first boats we had.
For a little while.
Oh, yeah.
You know Tom Bender? There he is, right there. I was only 46 years old then.
I knew my father, Bill Smith.
He's a young guy then. Standing over the wharf.
Bill Bailey?
Bill Bailey, didn't they have a Dutchie was caught fishing out there? I used to go out with him, set line hooks.
Yeah.
And,
Walt White?
Yeah, Walt pulled a couple of skiffs there.
Yeah.
What I was told is the boat we made on Mulder.
It is. That's one you bought from me.
Yeah, $100.
Yeah.
Billy, the boat was sunk, I think, wasn't it?
Pretty much.
And I wanted a Verity, but I wanted one with a lot.
It might have been, I don't know.
He said, give me $100. And he went in and you got me hardware.
I think so.
There was some parts like the tiller and pieces, and
Yeah.
we took that boat and that's what we made the first mold out of.
Yeah.
So that would have been Myron Harmon's
Yeah.
boat.
Yeah.
He had the shack where they had the dock building there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Down on
Yeah.
the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good boat. That's the one we took across the ocean.
Yeah.
You know, the only reason that boat survived is so with a small rope and an old tire on the stern and a small steady and sail forward, she could surf
Oh, yeah.
down
Yeah.
the 20-foot sea, as long as it wasn't breaking. I'm talking about a big swell.
Well,
Hey, I think I paid you too much. $100. I built 150 of them.
Did you really?
150.
Wow. That's incredible.
I went down to Dick Abbott with the first one, you know. I said, what do you think? He says, cabin's too high, you know.
Not heavy enough.
He had a, and then, oh, pleasure boat people, they didn't want the engine box across the middle. And I said, you know, that's the strength of the boat. If you get a sea over the stern, it keeps some of it out of the cabin. When you got your gill nets and codfish and slopping around in the stern, it keeps it all back.
Sure.
But you know, if you asked them to climb over that engine box, you'd think
They want a part of it, yeah.
going over the mountain. They say, I can't, how you can't leave that? So that's funny. I didn't know that you were the guy.
Oh, yeah.
You lived down there then, just south of Dutchie's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that a place Duck White used to have a boat there? And they used to have an ice machine. The only ice machine in Baldwin was about Harshy Herbert's place.
I think it was just down past it.
Grace M. Denton, Roger Common's boat?
I don't remember those days.
No.
It's a little early for me.
You got to be a young fella now.
Yeah.
Bill Bailey.
Yeah.
Well, he was Lois's grandfather, right? Lois's mother was. We used to call her Snook. Snook.
Yeah, Snook was my aunt. That was my father's sister.
Right. So that would be Bill Bailey's sister.
Yeah.
And the skiff they had would have been around World War II. It was named the Bill. And they fished it. This guy Eddie Carmen and Dutch White fished it. They kept it on the Freeport side.
Freeport side, that's right. Yeah.
In fact, isn't that his shack in that picture?
Could well be.
Because that's like on the Dock Drive on the other side.
Yeah.
You know what my nickname was? Jerky.
Yeah.
Everything I did wrong. And here comes Jerky. And why did they call you Billy Botch? They said you used to have quite a temper in the old days. Was he ever very excitable?
A little bit.
I guess everyone gets excited at times, but
One day they told me you had a brand new camera, a very expensive camera. You were trying to take some pictures, didn't work right, and threw it right in the creek, right?
I understand that. I've done it.
Drills, hammers.
Anything that didn't work.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Used to be some big card games down in those shacks down there.
Yeah, right there, Johnny Blair's place.
Yeah, snuffy everywhere.
Yeah.
Whenever the winter, when it was too cold to fish, you'd see the smoke coming out of one of them stacks, and you go in there. There was some heavy-duty betting going.
I wish Freddie was here. He's the one you should talk to.
Yeah. I was telling her about Hike, which I think was her grandfather.
Yeah.
Which he said his name was William. We called him Hike, which would have been Elwood's father. And I think Jackie is the guy we call Little Man.
Little Man, yeah.
Well, they bought motors on time. Like if these guys were working the bay, they run a new motor, they didn't have money, they paid me like $50 a week.
Right, right.
So they always paid. And then Hike came in, bought a motor. And a month or two went by and he never came in. And I knew he was working the bay. And one day Elwood comes in with Little Man with the father's motor on the Garvey. So I jump on the Garvey. I says, I'm taking the motor. So I start to loosen the clamps. And Elwood and Jackie, or Little Man, they jump on me. And they start hitting me. So I had two mechanics working there. In fact, one is still there, Andy Diermeyer and Paul Daigle. He used to race midgets under the name of Billy Spade. They're both pretty tough, regular. They jump in the boat. Now there's 5 guys in the Garvey, which is half full of water and seaweed, trying to hit each other. Somebody calls the police. Down comes Claude Rayner, or Johnny Rayner, one of the old-time Freeport cops. He lines us all up on the dock. We're all soaking wet. He says, what's going on? He says, I'm trying to get my motor back. He says, well, if you don't have a judge's order, a court order, you can't take that motor. So he says to Elwood and Jackie, he says, go ahead, you can go. And I tell your friend, lady friend here, the next morning, in walks a very nicely dressed lady. And she says, I'm Mrs. Verity. She says, how much does my husband owe you? And I said, oh, looked up $350, something like that. She gives me the $350. Paid bill. That was it.
Incredible.
So we always got paid, no interest.
Yeah.
They'd come in, you know, the water pump don't work. The propeller is reduced from this size to this size, like
round down to nothing.
And I said, you ain't been aground with this thing, huh? No, never been aground. The skeg is gone right off the bottom of the motor. They says, you know, this motor overheats. So we used to send them to Evinrude, you know. They'd say, this motor overheated, and they'd look at us and say, who the hell was running this?
Wonder why, right?
Yeah, a lot of fun. Well, that's what she's trying to get, is some of the old stories and the good times and bad times. And somebody like Billy, to me, Billy and Dick Abbott, and some of those fellas were like gods. I mean, I couldn't believe it. He was telling me they had, how many bushels on the scoop? 1,000? 500? Says she was so cranky that you'd have to run to the other side to keep her from rolling up. You ran her. How many bushels did you put on?
We were only allowed to put 300 on.
300.
Yeah, she was getting old then.
Yeah, remember George Street with the Mako?
Oh yeah.
He worked that boat so long, the mast was like this,
Twisted, yeah.
and the pilot house was like this. We used to say, you got to rig her the other side for 40 more years. That shit straightened out. He worked alone a lot.
Twisted,
Oh, she was so bad. The pilot house would sit there like this, and you look at the mast, and she's laying like this. The boat has always worked off one side. And that was a Liberty launch, so they weren't that tough, right? They were 42 footers. They were Liberty launches.
He used to put a lot on it.
Yeah.
Times.
Oh yeah.
But he didn't like it because she didn't work right, like, you know.
He kept everything in the bow, huh? Remember, he used to keep everything on the bow.
Pretty much in the middle of the boat.
Yeah, I mean, it never went behind the wheel. When we first started skimming, World War II really started the skimming. And there were boats, you know, it was about 100 boats. Billy says 50, but I'm telling you, there was boats working out of Baldwin and Freeport. Every boat that could float had a dredge, even ones that couldn't float. So it was quite a time. There was a guy, Parshy Herbert, we worked for him. So we used to think a big advancement was to cut the bottom out of the bushel basket, which was wire, so that when you picked it up, the clams would go right into it. So they'd say, if you work for Parshy, you put a crown on that bushel, then you take the deck bucket and you fill it, and you throw it on top. So I worked for him 1 week. I went up to get paid at his house. And after I tried, my skiff was rocking so much, see, I couldn't put that big crown. Clams kept falling up. So I went up and I had a receipt for 200 bushels. He gave me a check for 150 bushels. And I says, what happened to the
Weren't
two?
heavy enough.
He says, a little light, weren't they, Grover? Little light. You know, and he was never looking either. He had the hat on, the face far back hat, and the curved pipe, and he was asleep in the chair most of the time. And he knew my 50 bushels short. I think Al Herbert told him.
Probably.
You know, when they throwed him up, they used to chuck him 5 or 6 high in a truck.
Yeah.
If you do that all day and you get
You can feel
50 bags that are a little light, say, hey, watch that guy. You know? So you got enough baloney, you let these people go back to work? Wouldn't sink. They rammed it. You know, it was one of them buyback like this, but I can't. I'll give you a copy and you give it to your wife.
She'll laugh at it.
Funny thing is, why did everybody stick at it? When everybody is so fed up and killing themselves, working all sorts of hours.
He never really got mad. I mean, you know, crazy things happened at times, but only at times you know, starts swearing maybe like that. Maybe not even swearing. I never. But well, it was a different ocean, as we used to say years ago. Different ocean out there now.
You think the government ruined most of it with their laws?
The government, for Christ's sake, they didn't do nothing. Those guys with the skiffs, where the hell did they go? They went 2 miles up the beach and that's it.
Yeah.
They don't never go like 20 or 30 miles with a skiff. I did plenty of times.
Fish
I had a big
cholera banks?
No, southeast we used to go, you know, from the beach. And we took like the whole afternoon to get in, get back, because the wind changed to northwest. And you know, guys were all seasick.
It was a long ride.
We got them, you know, they got, she'll come, she'll be all right, as long as we keep 2 guys pumping her.
I know I appreciate it, Billy, and I'm sorry if they, because he had a sort of a stroke a while back, and I didn't want to make him uncomfortable.
Nah, it doesn't bother me.
I hope not. I hope not.
Doesn't bother me.
Well, you look great on camera.
See that?
On camera.
Hollywood. Here we go.
You have a good screen presence. Yeah.
I don't know if, I don't know, she could be older. She could be old too. But she was married a long time, but she got divorced. The husband walked out. She from down south, you know. Stop! Hey! You hear some different people, he's right away he's going to start barking. He's a crazy dog. Gets put in the back if you don't stop. You want to get tied up?
How many boats did you have built over the years? Endeavor, the Enterprise?
Well, they were all the same. This guy here built me a lot of boats. This Tom Bendy. He's only 18 years old.
Really?
That's all he was.
Is that Alabama?
That's down in Alabama, yep. Monkey Town. That's what they call it.
Oh, yeah?
Montgomery.
Montgomery.
Yeah. Wasn't no Monkey Town. There was a lot of people working there, boy. He was a good guy. Tell him you don't have to pay for the boat. You can take the boat. Pay it off after you get it and all that, you know.
Really?
That's I'll give you all the money I have, but I'll pay it, you know, soon. Pretty soon.
You're talking about a few $100 grand, right?
No, it was around, I don't know what the hell I paid for that boat. I don't even, these boats cost a lot more.
Yeah.
This boat here costs about 150, 160,000, this boat. She's a big boat though. She's up, I still have her. And hot, and hot. And this one, Mr. Bill, we still got hot. I had some other winch too. And Mr. Bill. That guy. That's the guy that works for us.
Oh, yeah?
He works for us, Charlie. Comes home occasionally to see if he's still got a wife yet.
Yeah.
He said, I'm not gonna go home, he starts beating on me again.
What's he up, Newport?
No, he lives out in the island here.
Oh.
He's a character. But have a lot of things like that happen.
This is one of the beige houses in Baldwin. That's the way it
Yeah,
looked at.
that's where she was. And I forget whose house it was. Had a name.
Ash White?
It could have been something like that, yeah. Name something like that of that sort. But I never remember the names and things that you do yourself. You do remember partly.
I think we're gonna leave him alone and let him rest. And
It's right there on the opening table. If you want to tape it at all.
Johnny German, blonde, blue-eyed kid.
No, it's Irish.
It's Irish.
Irish is the blonde, I think.
She's part Irish. Half, I think. Half Italian, half Irish. That's a good mix, right?
Well, my nephews are half Irish and half, us, us mixture. And the one looks Italian and the one looks Irish. The one looks like a Verity, and the other one you wouldn't even think was a Verity. He looks like a little guinea. One's a guinea, one's Irish.
So what's it like working with guys?
It's not bad. They're good guys. I mean, they're the first ones to help me out and tell me, say, no, I'll lift that for you. There's a difference between, men and boys. Boys will ask you to do something. Men will say, oh, no, let me get that. But they're a good bunch of guys. So, I don't have any problems with them. Not yet, anyway. I don't know about Billy, though. No, but they're good guys.
Oh, Clarence. That was Mark Cummings. I don't know. Whatchamacallit named him that. Eleanor Koch.
Oh, yeah.
Called him Clarence, yeah. And,
Wink, I guess Wink was from his father. There was Big Wink and Little Wink.
Yeah.
His name is Leon, so they call him Wink.
What about, do you remember people like Blubber and...
Oh, Blubberhead was one of the Verities. Who was Blubberhead? Was that Jimmy or?
Little Man.
Little Man.
Dink
Deuce
Faddle.
Bad. Did Dink Faddle?
Dink
Deuce
Faddle.
Bad. Yeah. Elwood was.
Elwood.
Was Jimmy.
Crab Claw. The guy in ball and his hands were all busted up and he was like that.
What about Fat Red?
Well, Fat Red and Fat Mike, they were that was a perfect name. Mike was like round, this round, big around.
What was your nickname, Dad?
Jerky.
Jerky, yeah.
Yeah. You know, I went out cod fishing the first time, set lining. After I just knew a little bit, but I had the old skiff, leak like a sieve. You had the galvanized pump. You pumped with one hand and you steered with the other. So the first time I set the lines out, I used to set them at dawn or just before dawn, and I started to pick up, and it's another guy on top of me. In other words, his line was across mine, but it was dark when we set, so I don't know. So I pick my box up, and I see his line. I get his line up, and I cut his line to get under it. And I tie a square knot, make sure it's, but then I see a couple of fish in sight on his line, see? They're going to get off, right?
They're gonna get off,
So I took a couple of fish, only 1 or 2 codfish. This is winter time, it's pretty cold out there. And I dropped his line, it was tied together, and I went along my way. Now there's not a boat in sight, nothing. We're off Fire Island someplace. So I come back to the dock. Everybody's looking at me. Dutch says, "You're in deep shit." I said, "What?" He says, "You had duck white up today, didn't you?" I says, I don't know. And you took a couple of fish off him too, didn't you? He says, me. No. He says, "You jerk." He says, "You don't do that to a guy." He said, "If you're going to cut someone's line, cut your own. You never cut." I said, "Well, he was on top of me." He says, "It don't matter. You never cut the other guy's line. Cut your own line." So I was in a doghouse for a long time. Then I started skimming for Parshy Herbert, $1.65 a bushel. And we took a bushel and we'd put a crown on it, And everyone says, when you work for Parshy, you put a bushel in a peck. He says, fill a bushel, take the deck bucket, fill the deck bucket, pour it in the bag. That's a Parshy Herbert bushel. So I worked a week for him. And he was never at the dock. If he was asleep in the chair, had his face far back, hat on, the pipe. Never saw anything. I got the tickets from his son. Rubber and Ale Herbert.
So one of them was tar, they call it.
Tar ass. Yeah. So I go down to get paid, and they say, "Well, Parshy's up at his house." Now I figure Parshy is a poor guy, right? I go up to Cornwell Avenue. There's a house with white pillars. Looked like a banker's house. So I go up to the door, I knock on the door, and a nice lady comes to the door. I says, "Parshy in?" She says, "Just a minute." Comes to the door. Now I had maybe 50 bushels a day. That was a good day. So maybe I worked 4 days. I was expecting 200 bushels and $1.65 a bushel. So he hands me a check for like 150 bushels. I says, "Hey, Parshy, I'm 50 bushels short." And he looks at me, he says, "A little light, weren't they, Grover?" He got his bushel in a packet. Little light, weren't they? That just proves one thing. You cannot beat the native guys at their own trade, right? No matter how you try it, you never win. Anyway, I don't know how we got on that subject. It makes you think I'm a little dishonest.